Hello, I've done this for um, video for paramedics and healthcare professionals for the United Kingdom, but also I think it would benefit for these people working all around the world, because it might be some of the things I say will resonate with you, resonate with the culture and attitudes in the country you're living in. There again, it might not, but you might find it interesting to listen to. I've already given a very detailed account of how here in the United Kingdom I had chest pains, pains radiating down the left arm, tingling in my fingers, and I'm age 60. The equivalent of 111 in the United States, it's called 999 here in the UK. They sent an ambulance, and you're not surprised by those symptoms that are presented. Of course, an ambulance is going to be sent for chest pains. I gave all the detail, my personal history. This has happened before. Family members dying from heart attacks and strokes, so it was pretty obvious. And the paramedic at 999 made a decision to send the ambulance. I just rung initially for advice because, like a lot of people, you don't want to bother the emergency service unnecessarily. So there's a whole story beforehand, as is so often in these kinds of cases. But the paramedic said, I think we need to get you checked out here. And when she said that, I thought, she is right, it needs to be checked out. She said they might just check you out and send you home, but we've got to be sure. We can't take any chances with these kind of symptoms. So they sent the ambulance. Two people arrived, a young girl about 20, she's the junior paramedic, and then the senior paramedic, he's in his 40s. He was the one that was in charge. I live in a bungalow. They did not arrive with a wheelchair. They had no equipment with them, no ECG, no papers in their hand to document pulse and respiration. There was no blood pressure equipment, nothing. I explained to them in detail, as coherently and as plainly as I'm speaking to you now, what was the matter with me. In detail. You couldn't have got a better account. I was conscious, alert, speaking as I am. First of all, the paramedic, now I'm remembering, was telling me off about not using a special spray, which I actually don't have. I know the spray he's referring to, but I don't have it. But I was getting a lecture about using a spray, which I didn't have anyway. And if I had had it, I would have probably used it, but I hadn't got this spray that he was talking about. So I was getting told off right from the beginning. They did not check my pulse. They didn't seem to be observing my respiration. Nothing was written down. After giving all detailed information, the senior paramedic said to me, "You come across to me as an anxious person." So I'm so surprised by this. What's this got to do with anything? Aren't you going to take me to hospital? And again, he said, I'm just giving my opinion here. I think you're a very anxious person. And so it just went on and on. I was challenging him on this. And in the end, I said, "Are you going to take me to hospital? Because this is why you've been called." And he said, "No, I'm not taking you to hospital." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because you become across to me as an anxious person. And you're very anxious, and I'm not taking you to hospital." So I challenged him on this. Do you know how long this went on? For about 25 minutes. I wasn't to have my watch on. I didn't look at my watch, but it just went on and on and on. This is vital time. This is supposed to be an emergency service. There are other people needing ambulances. They need to get me to casualty as quick as possible and then be off to another job. This is a cut and dried case. They pick me up, take me to accident and emergency, drop me off, and then go to somebody else who's waiting to be seen to. Time is of the essence, and it's so obvious. This is a straightforward chest pain call out. But he refused to take me, because he considered me an anxious person. And then I said to him, I looked him strongly in the eye, and I said it with such conviction and firmness. I said, "I am not backing down on this." And there must have been something in my tone of voice, and he suddenly looked very, very, very scared. Really shit scared, to put it bluntly. I think he'd realised this was somebody he was not to mess with. And then he started backpedaling. Oh, well, you never told me it was chest pains and all that. And he says, what do you want me to do then? Take me to hospital. Okay, right, You know, very belligerent, very reluctant, you know, like, I've got to take you to hospital. Now, this isn't the first time I've had this problem with paramedics in an emergency 999 situation. Remember, this is 999, this is 111, this is chest pains. This is not indigestion, right? They know my medication. I've told them I'm on statins, I'm on Ramipril. I've already seen a cardiologist. This is somebody you've got to get to casualty. And this has happened before with another paramedic, and I remember the paramedic, I was thinking about this yesterday in bed, and he said to me, well, there's no point taking you, they're only going to discharge you. And this is exactly what the paramedic said in the ambulance this time. They're only going to send you home. And I said, you might be right. I said to the paramedic, you might be right. They probably will find there's nothing wrong. But that's not the point. The point is you've been requested by headquarters at 999, in the light of all the information, to take me to casualty because of these chest pains. And it's not, you are not a doctor. It's not your decision. And I have to be checked out. And I think the problem is, I'm to get to the root of it, and I want you all to think about this, paramedics, is that you are dealing with people like me on a daily basis, the chest pains, right? Middle-aged people. It's not indigestion. There is chest pain. You're giving them amyl nitrate. They are getting a bit of relief from the pain. You are giving them aspirin. They're perhaps getting a little bit of relief from the pain. It's radiating down the left arm, tingling. I remember having speech problems. I was sort of slurring on one time. They called me out. My lips I went all numb and things like that. So there's obviously something going on. But with patients like me, as you know, paramedic, the doctors cannot find what's going on. They can't understand what's going on. There might be a slight raised blood pressure. There's nothing on the ECG. The bloods are coming back. The chest x-rays are fine. They can't detect anything. So the patient gets discharged as soon as the pain gets to almost zero, right? Because they've got to control the pain. They can't release you if you're sort of lying there with severe chest pains. And I think what it is with paramedics, I'm realising the problem is you resent taking people like me to hospital. You say, what is the point of me taking this person with chest pain to hospital only for them to be discharged 5 hours later? This is a wasted journey. This is a waste of my time. And I think some of you paramedics think people with chest pain are a waste of your time, simply because at the present time, the way things are, doctors, despite doing all these tests, do not know what's going on that is causing so many people like me to get these symptoms. Now, I can tell you, this is factually correct. The last time I was in hospital with chest pains, kept in overnight, it was in the news. The British Medical Association had done research. It must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, and specifically to find out what happens to people like me, the people that keep being rushed to 999, 111, emergency to hospital. They're investigated, they can't find anything wrong, and then so they're discharged. They're given the amyl nitrate, they're told to take it easy, take the aspirin. And the British medical research found and concluded that the majority of these people later went on to develop recognisable cardiac problems that could be ascertained from tests. In other words, using pure common sense, that all these people were obviously, this was a sign of something not being quite right. The doctors can't detect what's the matter, but eventually, a year or two later, 5 years later, the same people who are being rushed backwards and forwards to hospital, suddenly one day, something comes up. Something shows up. And they suddenly realise, this is a problem. But it wasn't evident 3 years ago. In other words, using just your plain common sense, these symptoms are the body's way of indicating that something's not quite right. There's been a change, it's not quite right. The doctors don't have the technology yet to determine all that's going on in the body, right? But the BMA found that the majority of these patients, just like me, later went on to develop things like all sorts of technical heart problems, serious things. In other words, these people, how can I put it? They weren't, crying wolf. These people weren't crying wolf. They were genuine people with genuine complaints, which couldn't be ascertained what was the matter with them. But then the symptoms kind of changed, the symptoms kind of developed, and then the doctors were able to work out what was going on. Now we've got this test now, because this person has now this symptom. The doctors can only diagnose and treat something according to the tests. If they can't ascertain what's the matter, they can't treat you. They have to see a change. And if the change is not evident, there's nothing showing, they can't treat you. But it does not mean that the patient shouldn't have been sent to casualty. Because when you arrive, every single time they give you amyl nitrate. I was not in a great deal of pain on Tuesday when this is why I didn't call the ambulance. It was a long story, one of these long stories. I didn't want to bother them, I was just looking for advice. So I didn't, they chose not to give me the amyl nitrate. They didn't give me amyl nitrate at hospital because I wasn't complaining of severe pain. I said it's niggling. It's like out of 10, it's number 1. There's a niggle, but I didn't make the decision to have an ambulance sent to me. It was a paramedic at H quarters who I gave all the information, and she said to me, I think you need to be checked out. And I agree with her. She's right. But me being the patient, as so many of us are, we don't want to trouble the hospital. We don't want to be a nuisance. And I'm thinking, why call an ambulance if I'm not in dire agony? If I was in very severe pain, rolling about, I would have called an ambulance, an emergency, 999 111, but I didn't do it. But the paramedic, obviously, they're trained at the headquarters 999, and they say, no, we need to get you checked out. But this paramedic wouldn't take me. And I say, this has happened before with the other paramedic. And I think this is all to do with education. And it's with paramedics. And what has come to me from me with some of the paramedics, because you can tell from when I'm talking, I've had quite a few different call-outs and things for chest pain, is that some of them are very, very cocky and very arrogant. They're obviously very experienced. They are probably used to taking people like me to hospital and then hours later them being discharged, or being discharged in the morning, kept overnight and observed, and then discharged. And it's this attitude of, you are a waste of my time and space. And I think what happened on Tuesday, that paramedic had reached probably burnout. He'd probably say, I am sick and tired of taking people to hospital with chest pain when they are not rolling around the floor in agony. If I was crawling on the floor with agony, he might have just decided, well, perhaps we should take her after all. And it's this presumptuous of paramedics to, in a sense, play doctor. And you have to realise, paramedic, you are not a doctor. You are not a doctor. Yes, you have a lot of experience. of dealing with the public. You have a lot of experience of taking people with chest pains to hospital, and you have seen people discharged with chest pains after they've been thoroughly examined. But it only takes one patient for the doctor to examine and find, say, that from the ECG, something's showing, something's not right here. It only takes one patient where the blood tests come back and something is revealed in the blood test. It only takes one x-ray from one patient for the doctor to say, oh dear, that's not looking very good, is it? In other words, you don't know everything, and it's not your place. It is not your place as a paramedic to refuse and to be reluctant to take somebody with chest pains when it's so bloody obvious they need to get to casualty. It's so bloody obvious. They're telling you I've got chest pains radiating down the left arm. I'm breathless. They're middle-aged. They're 40 to 60, more 65. It is so bloody obvious, and you have had enough experience to know, common sense, what your job is. You know you are supposed to take these people to hospital. But some of you are reluctant to do this. Some of you are reluctant to do this, and I've had to fight my corner. I had to do it on Tuesday, and I had to argue before with the paramedic to get me to take me to hospital. Now, I want to be fair to this paramedic. My first thought afterwards, I don't want him sacked. I don't want, I realise he's very experienced, but he's got a bit arrogant. But then I've been reflecting on this, and before I became chronically sick, I used to work in personnel, and I worked for the local authority, right? I can tell you with 100% conviction, certainty, that if he had been employed by my local council, he would have got sacked for what he's done. The paramedic who refused to take me to casualty on Tuesday would have been sacked. And I'm telling you with 100% certainty, as somebody who's worked in personnel. This is really very serious. I was thinking a fellow like this could be warned, but I've now reflected deeply based on my personal experience. And I can tell you that he would have been sacked. Simply because he is experienced. That's the main reason. He is experienced. And he ought to know better. And if you have somebody who is so experienced, a man in his 40s, so experienced paramedic, and he's saying, I am not taking you to casualty with chest pains because you seem to me an anxious person. This is really very serious. Thank God there's nothing the matter with me. They can find nothing the matter. What happened if there was something the matter with me? What happened if I had been a passive individual? He was quite intimidating. He was very intimidating, quite aggressive, quite belligerent. And if I hadn't been, and there was nobody there with me, I was on my own, if I had given in to him and let him leave and not take me to hospital, there I am, a woman on my own with chest pains. What would the consequences could have been? I might have been too scared and not ring 999 again. My symptoms could have got worse, and I would say, well, there's no point ringing 999, it won't take me to hospital. I mean, the implications of this are so serious that I actually think this man should be sacked. And it's not because I'm wanting to get my own back. Not at all. And it's not because I want to spite him. The reason why I want him sacked is I'm concerned this could happen again. I'm concerned this could happen again. Here he's got a junior paramedic working with him, and when you start as a junior, you are partners with an experienced paramedic, as you know. The purpose is you have to learn on the job what it's all about, and you learn from people who have more experience than you do. And I could tell by the attitude and the things that this junior paramedic was saying that she was supporting him. She was beginning to think like he was, but he was totally wrong. So I put in an official complaint, and one of the things I've asked for is that this junior paramedic is repartnered with another paramedic. In other words, I want her to be taken away from him immediately, because I am concerned about the influence he's having on her. She's just a young girl of 20, learning to the ropes. She's doing her exams and all the rest of it, and she needs to be properly with an experienced paramedic who can teach her good attitudes, good behaviour, the right way of doing things. I didn't say in the letter, and it didn't occur to me at the time that I would want him sacked, but I'm tempted to send another little note to just say that if he was employed by my employers, a large city councillors who I worked for, he'd be sacked. He would be sacked. But I am not made the complaint to spite him. I'm not making the complaint to get my own back on him. I think this guy has reached the point where he's fed up and sick to death of taking people to hospital. That is the attitude that's came across to me. And it came across to me from the other paramedic. He's sick and tired of taking people to hospital, because they get discharged later on. And they resent it. They resent taking people with chest pain to hospital. The person that called the ambulance last time I had a 999 call out got a telling off from the paramedic. They told them off and said, "You are wasting our time ringing up about my chest pains." It's like we've got better things to do than to take somebody suffering from chest pains to hospital. You see, I didn't complain that time. The reason why, I was scared of the consequences. I was scared that the paramedic might come and break my windows of my home or something. You just don't know how people will react, and I was scared. But this time, I'm not scared, and I've got to think about other people as well. It's not just me. There's other people out there, and this is the fact that it's happened twice is, I think, a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call that something's wrong, and it quickly needs to be corrected. And the starting point has to be with the training. It has to be with the training. And I've worked for the National Health. I trained as a psychiatric nurse. I worked as a switchboard operator in hospitals. I am a trained, experienced emergency telephone operator, emergency doctors. I've worked for the NHS in personnel. Right, I know the culture of the NHS, and I know that people are too scared to challenge each other on their behaviour. They see bad behaviour, but they won't challenge their colleagues, because part of the culture of the NHS is you've all got to be buddies, you've all got to support each other, and you mustn't criticise each other, because if you do, people will make your life hell. People will make your life hell if you criticise colleagues within the National Health System. You see things that are going wrong, that are clearly black and white wrong, and the culture of the NHS is you'll suffer for it if you complain. People will have it in for you. What tends to happen is everybody close ranks. You must not complain about each other. And so you see nurses terribly the way they behave, and staff and charge nurses and sisters don't do anything about it. Nursing officers don't do anything about it, because of the culture of the NHS is you don't grass on your colleagues, and it's probably like this in other professions as well. But how are we going to weed out people that have reached burnout stage and that really need to basically be sacked and find another job? I think he needs a different job. I think he's reached breaking point. He's had enough. And I think it was the same for the other paramedic. They are just sick and tired of taking people to hospital. And they are picking and choosing who they think needs to go to hospital and who they don't think needs to go to hospital, but they're not doctors. It's not their job to make that decision. And this is the whole point of the video. And I would say to you, have courage if you see this happening in your workplace. Have courage. It takes a lot of bravery to complain, and I suppose what's called grasping on your colleagues and things, but are you a man and a woman of integrity? Are you a worm? This is what you want to ask yourself. Are you a worm, or are you a man and woman of personal integrity who sees something going on that is wrong? It is 100% wrong. It's black and white. It's obvious. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. And you have a responsibility to speak up. It is hard. It is scary. Right. But you have got to muster up all the courage within you and do the right thing. It's about doing the right thing. Don't turn a blind eye to things like that. Like what you just heard. If you see things like that, speak up. Speak up. Go to somebody. If you're too scared of challenging the particular person who's done it, go to somebody. Find somebody. Try and get advice from somebody. In confidentiality, tell them what's been happening. And it's going to take an awful lot of courage. But, can you really live with yourself to know that you are doing nothing to prevent a man or a woman behaving like this? You see it's wrong, it should be dealt with, and you're doing nothing to stop it. It's no different to let's say you see somebody, say it's your day off, right? You're a paramedic, it's your day off. You see somebody, it's your day off, and they've fallen off their bike and they're all alone. It could be a country road, there's nobody about, and you're just going past. If you don't stop and try and help, what kind of, it's as bad as you driving past that motorcyclist who's fallen off their bike in a country road. There's nobody, they're on their own, and you have just driven by and left them there, sprawled out on their own, done nothing. You have basic first aid skills, but you are not prepared to do it on your day off. That's how bad it is if you don't do anything. You'd be appalled and disgusted if you heard a paramedic in that situation, what I've described, not stopping to help. You'd say, what the hell's going on? You've got first aid training. You could do something. You could ring for the ambulance, stay with them till the ambulance arrived. Obviously, once the ambulance arrives, you leave and let them get on with it. But if you've got first aid training, you stop and help. And so I'm liking it. If you refuse to do anything about a colleague in behaving like what I've described, it's the equivalent. It's exactly the same. You have a duty and responsibility, and you must be brave. And if it's only for once in your life, be brave. And I can tell you that if you can be brave, whatever happens. Gandhi said that when you are brave and muster up the courage to speak out against wrong, that God sends people to help you. And I believe this, and it resonated with me. So if you can just be brave, stand up, complain about wrong, then if you do it, it's more than likely somebody will come alongside you and support you. God will send somebody to support you. He will say, there is a man and woman being brave, trying to speak out against wrong. And the infinite, the divine God will somehow send somebody to support you. Somebody's going to say, I'll support you. Somebody from a trade union, somebody from somewhere or other, some department within the health. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to back you up with this, And I've seen this happen. I know a man within the National Health Service who was on the point of retirement, and he stood up for somebody, and he knew there'd be serious consequences for him. But he said I remember him saying to me, there's going to be serious consequences for me, I suspect, because I'm going to speak out. But he said, I can't live with myself if I don't speak out. This was a man on the verge of retirement, speaking out against something that he'd seen that was wrong, and he knew his life it's going to make things very, very hard for him. So I would just encourage you is to be brave and speak out against these things that are wrong. And that's all I have to say.